Something just happened at a Houston rally that could change Texas politics forever, and no one saw it coming. The scorching Texas sun hammered down relentlessly on the open-air stage set in downtown Houston, but the heat on the pavement was nothing compared to the fire that was about to ignite on that stage. Thousands of people squeezed into the plaza, holding signs high, chanting slogans in unison. The air seemed to hum with tension and anticipation, like the charged stillness right before a lightning storm strikes. At the heart of it all stood Representative Jasmine Crockett, microphone gripped tightly, her face a blend of unyielding resolve and barely contained anger. The buzz on social media had been building all morning. Crockett was ready to voice what countless frustrated Texans had been thinking for months, but hadn't dared to say aloud. And just a few blocks away, within the walls of the governor's mansion, Greg Abbott had no idea the storm that was heading his way. The stage was set by weeks of political tension. Abbott had once again made national news, but for all the wrong reasons. A federal court had ordered Texas to restore funding to a summer feeding program, providing meals to more than 300,000 low-income children across the state. It wasn't complicated. The order was clear, legally grounded, and historically consistent with federal precedent. Yet Abbott refused compliance. Instead, he filed an appeal, effectively holding the money hostage in legal limbo while children went hungry. His excuse? A rambling statement about federal overreach that mirrored talking points from a Trump rally held just days earlier. The timing wasn't subtle. Trump had criticized the feeding program, labeled it socialist welfare, and within 48 hours, Abbott was in court fighting to dismantle it. Texans were not blind to the spectacle. Their governor had stopped governing for them. He was now performing for an audience of one, taking cues from Mar-a-Lago, hoping for approval from his political patron. Crockett, representing Dallas and communities directly harmed by Abbott's obstruction, had reached the edge of her patience. She stepped up to the microphone as the crowd's roar hit a fever pitch, then raised her hand for silence. Gradually, the cheers faded, leaving a tense, expectant hush. When she finally spoke, her voice cut across the plaza like a whip. "Today, I want to talk about leadership," she began, her Texas accent sharper than usual, her tone calm, yet carrying unmistakable weight. Real leadership, the kind that prioritizes people over politics, the kind that serves constituents, not Donald Trump. The crowd erupted, but Crockett held up her hand again, letting the energy swell. Because right now, in this state, leadership is missing. What we have is a governor who checks his phone every morning to see what Trump tweeted before deciding Texas policy. A governor who prioritizes staying in Trump's good graces over keeping Texas children fed. Before we dive into how this rally became the week's most viral political moment, possibly changing the trajectory of Texas politics forever, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're about to witness a political takedown so thorough, so devastating, people are still asking, can anyone stop Jasmine Crockett? And will Greg Abbott ever recover from what's coming? Drop a comment if you think this will change the game in Texas. Crockett began pacing the stage, her energy building as she fed off the crowd. "Let me tell you what real leadership looks like," she said, pulling out her phone. "Yesterday, I called Governor Gavin Newsom of California. Some of you might not like California politics, that's fine. But when a court ordered his state to expand healthcare access for immigrant children, he didn't appeal. He didn't fight. He didn't call Trump for permission. He implemented it within 30 days. That's what leaders do. They protect vulnerable people when the law tells them to." The contrast was deliberate and devastating. But Greg Abbott? When a court orders him to feed Texas children, American children, he files an appeal. He drags their meals through months, maybe years of legal wrangling. And why? Because Donald Trump doesn't like the program. The crowd's reaction was instant. Shouts, boos, raised fists, and signs flailing in the air. Crockett matched the intensity, her words picking up a rhythm, almost sermon-like. "Let me be clear. We have court orders. Federal court orders, telling Texas to provide basic services to its citizens. And our governor is choosing to defy them. Do you know what we call it when leaders ignore court rulings? Tyranny, the breakdown of the rule of law. The exact thing the Founding Fathers warned us against with checks and balances." She pointed to the state capitol in the distance. "Greg Abbott is not a king, not an emperor. He is a public servant, bound by the Constitution, bound by court orders, bound by law. Yet he's decided that none of that matters as much as pleasing Donald Trump. He's chosen tyranny over Texans." The phrase landed like a hammer. Tyranny over Texans. Perfect for headlines, viral clips, social media firestorms. Crockett had honed that line carefully. It was meant to sting, and it did. But she wasn't stopping at a single line. Her speech built like a courtroom argument. Let's talk about what this really means for real Texans, she continued, shifting from righteous fury to a more personal, poignant tone. In my district in Dallas, a program feeds kids breakfast and lunch during the summer. For many, that's the only real food they get all day. Parents work too, sometimes 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, to pay rent. They aren't asking for handouts. They're asking for help keeping their children healthy while they work themselves to exhaustion. She held up a folder. Signature Crockett move and read aloud. Maria Rodriguez, a single mother of 3 in Oak Cliff, works full-time at a nursing home and part-time cleaning offices at night. Her kids are 7, 9, and 11. During the school year, they get meals at school. Summer comes, and suddenly she's trying to feed 3 growing children on $23 a day after rent and utilities. Looking up, Crockett's eyes scanned the crowd. That feeding program Greg Abbott is fighting? It gave Maria's kids breakfast and lunch all summer. Healthy meals, fruit, protein, vegetables, not junk food. And it didn't cost her a dime. Texas taxpayers didn't pay extra. It's federally funded. But Greg Abbott, taking orders from Trump, decided these kids don't deserve to eat. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. She continued, moving to another story. James Washington, retired Army sergeant, raising his 2 grandkids after his daughter died in a car accident. Those kids are in that feeding program. Last week, he told me, and I quote, "Congresswoman, I served this country for 22 years. I never thought I'd see the day when a Texas governor would fight to take food away from American children. But here we are." Personal stories hit harder than any policy argument. These were real people, Texans, suffering because their governor was more interested in political theater than actual governance. Crockett's voice rose again, anger merging with righteous indignation. And let me tell you what makes this even worse. Abbott claims this is about principles. He says it's about federal overreach, state sovereignty, constitutional authority. But when Trump wanted National Guard troops at the border, no federal overreach complaint. When Trump demanded restrictive voting laws, no talk of sovereignty. When Trump calls, Abbott answers, every single time. She counted off examples on her fingers, each landing like a punch. Trump says jump. Abbott asks how high. Trump says deny election results. Abbott spreads conspiracy theories. Trump says ban books. Abbott goes after libraries. Trump says restrict voting. Abbott closes polling places in minority neighborhoods. Trump says rewrite history. Abbott censors textbooks. Trump says attack LGBTQ rights. Abbott targets trans kids. Trump says control women's bodies. Abbott bans abortion, with no exceptions. Every example amplified the crowd's energy, building a rhythm like a revival sermon. The heat, the tension, the passion, it all fused into one unstoppable wave. "This isn't about conservative principles," Crockett shouted over the growing din. "This is about one man's absolute obedience to another man. This is about Greg Abbott abandoning Texas to serve Trump. This is about a governor who forgot his oath, to the Constitution, to the people, not to a former president throwing tantrums at Mar-a-Lago." The crowd erupted, fists and signs thrust skyward, roaring their approval. Chants of serve Texas, not Trump, started spreading through different sections of the plaza. Crockett let it build before raising her hand for quiet again. Now I know some folks watching this are going to say, "Oh, she's just being partisan. She's just attacking Republicans." But let me be real clear. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat. This is about democracy versus tyranny. This is about the rule of law versus one man's ego. She pointed to the crowd. "I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or you've never voted in your life. If you believe in the Constitution, if you believe courts matter, if you believe leaders should follow the law even when they don't like it, then you should be mad as hell about what Greg Abbott is doing." Crockett's next move was pure political theater, but effective theater. She pulled out a copy of a court order, held it up high for the cameras to see. "This is a federal court order. It's signed by a judge. It has the seal of the United States District Court. It orders Texas to restore funding to the summer feeding program within 30 days. She paused, then made a show of checking her watch. That deadline passed 42 days ago. Greg Abbott is in contempt of this court order. He's actively defying the judicial system. She let that sink in, then delivered the knockout punch. You know who else defied court orders? George Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door. Bull Connor turning fire hoses on civil rights protesters. Every segregationist governor who thought they could ignore federal courts because they didn't like the outcome. Greg Abbott is walking that same shameful path, and history will judge him just as harshly. The comparison to segregationist governors was inflammatory, deliberately so, and the crowd's reaction showed it had landed exactly as intended. Social media was exploding in real time. Tyranny over Texans was already trending. Video clips spreading across every platform. conservative commentators scrambling to respond, but Crockett still wasn't done. She had one more card to play, one more contrast to draw. "You want to know what real courage looks like?" she asks the crowd. "Real courage is following the law even when your political base doesn't like it. Real courage is standing up to powerful people in your own party when they're wrong. Real courage is choosing what's right over what's easy." She pulled out her phone again, this time pulling up a news article and reading from it. 3 days ago, Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill passed by his own party's legislature. It was a popular bill. His supporters wanted him to sign it, but he looked at the constitutional issues, looked at the legal analysis, and said, "I can't sign this. It goes too far. That's leadership. That's putting principles over politics." The praise of Newsom was strategic. It would drive conservatives crazy, force Abbott's defenders into awkward positions, and give Democrats in Texas a positive example to rally around. Crockett hammered it home. Newsom's not perfect. No politician is. But when a court tells him to help vulnerable people, he helps them. When his own party passes something unconstitutional, he vetoes it. He governs based on the law, not based on what Trump posts on social media. She turned back toward the Capitol, speaking as if directly to Abbott, even though he was nowhere near the rally. "Governor Abbott, you want to be tough? You want to show strength? Then have the courage to do what's right, even when Trump disagrees. Have the backbone to follow court orders even when your base complains. Have the integrity to put Texas children ahead of your political ambitions." The crowd was fully with her now, completely energized, sensing they were witnessing something significant. Crockett brought it home. "Here's what I'm asking every Texan watching this. In the next election, remember this moment. Remember that when courts ordered your governor to feed hungry children, he chose to fight it. Remember that when Trump called, Abbott abandoned you to answer. Remember that you deserve leaders who serve you, not leaders who serve Mar-a-Lago." She paused, her voice dropping slightly, but losing none of its intensity. "Joy comes in the morning, y'all. That's what I believe. We've been through some dark times in Texas. Attacks on voting rights, bans on women's health care, censorship in schools, discrimination against LGBTQ Texans. It's been hard. It's been painful. But joy comes in the morning, and that morning is coming in the next election when we take back the House, when we elect leaders who believe in democracy over tyranny, when we remind politicians that they work for us, not for Trump." The religious reference, "Joy comes in the morning," resonated powerfully with the diverse crowd, many of whom came from faith traditions. It reframed the political struggle as a moral one, as a battle between darkness and light, oppression and liberation. "This isn't just about one feeding program," Crockett declared, building to her conclusion. "This is about what kind of state we want to be. Do we want to be a Texas that feeds its children or starves them? Do we want to be the Texas that follows the rule of law or defies it? Do we want to be the Texas that serves all its people or just the ones Trump approves of?" She raised her fist in the air, her final words ringing out over the plaza. "I choose democracy. I choose justice. I choose Texas over Trump. And I'm asking you to make that choice too. Stand up, speak out, and let's take back our state from a governor who forgot who he works for. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas." The crowd exploded. The rally continued for another hour with other speakers, but everyone knew the main event was over. Jasmine Crockett had delivered a political haymaker that would dominate news cycles for days. Within minutes, the clips were everywhere. Conservative outlets tried to spin it as divisive rhetoric and partisan grandstanding, but the substance of her accusations was hard to dodge. Abbott really was defying court orders. He really was appealing the feeding program, and Trump really had attacked it first. Abbott's office eventually released a statement late that evening, but it was defensive, legalistic, and utterly failed to address the core charge that he'd put Trump's approval ahead of Texas children's well-being. The statement talked about federal overreach and constitutional concerns, but never once mentioned the 300,000 kids waiting for meals. Political analysts across the spectrum noted that Abbott's response had only made things worse by confirming he had no good answer to Crockett's accusations. The fallout continued 4 days. Editorial boards across Texas published pieces questioning Abbott's priorities. Faith leaders from multiple denominations issued statements urging the governor to comply with the court order. Even some Republican state legislators privately expressed concern about the political optics of fighting to stop a feeding program. Progressive organizations mobilized, organizing protests outside Abbott's offices. Democratic candidates up and down the ballot in Texas started incorporating Crockett's tyranny over Texans line into their campaign speeches. 2 weeks after the rally, facing mounting pressure and terrible polling numbers on the issue, Abbott quietly dropped the appeal. His office claimed it was always a procedural matter, that they'd gotten the clarifications they needed. Nobody believed it. Everyone understood what had actually happened. Jasmine Crockett had publicly shamed him into backing down, had made the political cost of obedience to Trump too high to sustain. The kids got their meals. The feeding program continued, and Jasmine Crockett added another victory to her growing reputation as the congresswoman who refused to let politicians hide from their failures. But the bigger question remained unanswered. Could this moment really change Texas politics? Would Abbott's Trump loyalty become a permanent liability? And most importantly, was anyone brave enough to challenge Jasmine Crockett when she decided to call them out? If this breakdown of how Jasmine Crockett publicly shamed Greg Abbott's excuses and forced him to choose Texas over Trump fired you up, smash that like button and subscribe for more fearless political coverage. Comment below and tell us, do you think this changes Texas politics forever? Or will voters forget by the next election? Share this with every Texan who's tired of their governor serving Mar-a-Lago instead of their communities. And this isn't over. Wait until you see who Crockett calls out next. Your engagement spreads the truth.